Welcome, and today we are going to cover the topic of cognition and language. As you can see here, that we are going to discuss what is cognition initially, and as we know that cognition is literally relating to something which is in which are the processes of mind, the mental processes, and that is particularly about thinking, the most mature and complex mental process. And the cognitions are majorly involved imagination, language, thinking, reasoning, problem solving. In all those mental processes, this is what we call its cognition. And cognition is literally the thinking about something. Whatever you are thinking right now, you can say that it's your cognition. And with that thinking, you must be having some images in mind, and you must be naming them something. That is the language or the symbols you are assigning to it. So our cognitive skills, which usually help you to organize what you know about a general you can generalize those things in your knowledge, and you can know about certain different things, whatever you know about whatever. If I ask you about your breakfast and you name that dish, whatever you ate in your breakfast, if you can name that, then it is because of the knowledge that you had about that area, about that food. So this is also involved in your cognition. Moving on with language. Then when we talk about that what is language, then language is the collection of symbols, and those symbols are going to convey some sort of meaning, and those meanings are the combination of those symbols which they are going to generate. And there are infinite variety of combinations and infinite messages that you can make with such symbols and with that particular language. And as we know that there are a number of languages all around the world, they are being spoken by different area of people, by different areas, by different cultural background. So there are a number of languages, and all these languages are having some of these three components in them. The first is that language is always symbolic, and every language has given it a symbolic word, symbolic representation of particular or known things. So people used to spoke those sounds and write those words to represent particular objects, actions, events, and ideas, and they are those things are symbolized in that particular language in that way. For example, if I say a jug, then jug is going to be you're going to make an image of jug in your mind, and this is also the cognition. And because you know English or Urdu, that's why you made that jug which we perceive it as. But if I say something unusual that you don't know about, or you are not aware of that language, then it might not be able to understand that symbol, because that symbol itself is not going to have any meaning or any relation with that particular object. That's why it is called a symbol, because it is not related to that object to which it has been assigned. That's why we say that language is symbolic, and there is arbitrary in a sense that there is no relationship between the way an object looks and the way and the symbol we are going to assign to it. So the second thing is the language is generative. By generative we mean, and we say that something is generating. Generative means something is generating. If something is generating, then it is going to have number of combinations, some unique combinations, because those symbols, you arrange those symbols. As we say that one sentence you are going to say today, you are unable to repeat the same sentence with the same words again the next time you are trying to convey the same meaning. Why is that so? Because it is generative, and you are always going to say novel things unless and until you are going to write it, memorize it, and you are trying to make a copy of that sentence. So you are going to read it word by word. Unless and until you are not going to reading that sentence which you have written down on a piece of paper, then even you cannot memorize it, and even you cannot rehearse it, because language is generative, and to convey a same meaning you can use number of different words and number of different ways to do that. That's why it is generative, and every time you are going to have some new words or new sentences you are going to generate to convey the same meaning. Third is that language is structured. It is structured because if there will be a lack of structure, then we are unable to understand that. So always language has a limited structure, and if that is not spoken in that limited structure, then it will not be understood. For example, right now I am talking to you and you are listening to my lecture and you are able to comprehend it. If I will start making some unusual changes in the use of consonants, in the use of helping verbs, in the use of adjectives, then you will not be able to, if I am going to put them wrongly in a sentence, then you will not be able to comprehend what I am saying. That's why it is structured, and there is a limited number of ways that we can say something. For example, there is an example given that if we want to say that swimmer jumped into the pool, but we are never able to say that, and you are going to comprehend it in the same way that pool the into jumped swimmer, so you are not going to get anything out of it, that because you are unable to comprehend it. So that's why we say that it has to be structured in a way that it is comprehensible. So every language has all these three. The first is that it is symbolic, it is generative, and it is structured. Let's move on towards the structure of language. When we talk about the structure of language, then there are phonemes, and phonemes are those phonetics or those sounds, the speech units we call in the language, that can be distinguished perceptually. Perceptually, it means that, as you have already understood the concept of perception, so we have to comprehend, we have to understand the phonemes and their differences based on perceptual differences. Linguists estimates that humans are capable of recognizing only about 100 of such basic sounds, and English itself has 26 letters and it has 40 phonemes in it as well. Moving on with morphemes and semantics. First we talk about phonetics and phonemes, that was the sound and the unit of speech. Now we are talking about the morphemes and the semantics. Morphemes are the smallest unit of meaning in a language. For example, there are approximately 50,000 English morphemes, and these morphemes are actually called those words which in a way we are talking about. For example, the language, it is one morpheme, structure is one morpheme itself is a morpheme, which include, and as we are saying that English has 50,000 morphemes, that include the root words as well as prefixes and suffixes. When we are saying the word guard or a friend, it is consisted of single morpheme. When we are saying unfriendly, it is having three morphemes. One is un is the root, the un is the prefix, the friend is the root word, and li is the suffix. So these are the three morphemes in a single word. Let's talk about semantics. And semantics is the area of language which is concerned with the understanding the meaning of the word and the word combinations. For example, if we are going to say something meaningful, for example, if I would say that I am going to walk in the park, then you are going to literally get the gist of that what I am supposed to be doing and what I am going to do. So this is the semantic, in which it is consisted of both denotation and the dictionary definition as well as connotation, that it's the emotional overtone and the secondary implications, that whatever is going to happen is you are going to comprehend that. So the language is concerned with understanding the meaning of the words by the words combination. Then let's talk about the syntax. Syntax is a system of rules that specify how words can be arranged into a sentence. So there is going to be a code in which, and the code and the particular structure in which they have to be arranged. For example, this sentence is written, it is a syntax, the system and the set of rules in which if a word is written, if a sentence is written, if a sentence is arranged, then it is going to be the syntax. Then you are going to understand it is a structure of the language. Now let's move towards the milestones in language development. And when we are talking about that how a person or how a human child or how baby start producing words, then we can take it back towards the inception or towards learning the skill of speaking. Moving backwards, the 3-month-old infant displays a surprising language related talent, and they can distinguish phonemes from all the world's languages, including phonemes that they do not hear in their environment. So this is the time that when we say that if you start teaching a baby, a child, an infant, or a toddler 7 different languages, then he can understand and he can learn 7 different languages at this age, because all the phonemes are new to him. And phonemes, as you remember, are the sounds of the words, are the literal units of the words which are understood, which are comprehensible. So that at that time when he has not acquired any phonemes, so they are able to understand and absorb and learn any phonemes throughout of all the world's languages, and they can distinguish them. Adults cannot distinguish or discriminate phonemes that easily, as they are not used to, because they are habituated with their native languages. Actually, 1-year-old children are, as their curious ability disappears by the time children reach 12 months of age. So before infants utter their first word, they are making remarkable progress in learning the sound structure of their native language. So by their first birthday, they are going to absorb this ability of curiosity and understanding and distinguishing the different phonemes, and now they are absorbing themselves more into those native language, and all those languages in which they are going to be communicated a lot or interacted a lot in. By 7.5 months, infants begin to recognize common word forms. By 8 months, many children and many babies show the primitive first signs of understanding the meanings of their first word, and you might recognize and you might have seen it around in the babies, in the younger babies, in the babies less than a year, that there is a age when you say something and they just point at it, or they just smile at it, or they just respond to you when you are saying a particular word. So this says and this shows that they are understanding the meaning, they are familiar with that word. For example, if you are going to say shoes, or you are going to say nose or eyes, and they are smiling at you, or they are responding to you, or they are responding to you in any way, then it means that they can understand or they are familiar with that word. During the first 6 months of life, babies' vocalizations are dominated by crying, cooing, laughter, and that is going to have a limited means of communication, and they are going to communicate through their different forms of crying and laughter and expressions. Then infants start babbling, producing a wide variety of sounds, and they don't make the meaning, they don't know and they don't understand that what their babbling means, and they are actually not pronouncing a word. And by many repetitive consonant vowels combinations, like it could be la la la, it could be ba ba ba, and it could be any sort of babbling in which they are going to have consonants and vowel combinations. Babbling gradually becomes more complex and increasingly resembles the language spoken by parents and others in the child's environment. So it lasts until 18 months, and then even after children utter their first words. Then around 10 to 13 years of age, most children begin to utter sounds that corresponds to the words, and most infants' first words are similar in phonetics from the meaning even in different languages. So let's talk about that when they start using words. So when we are talking about using words, and children utter their first word, and it depends on child to child and when they are going to do that. Then toddler usually say between 3 to 50 words by 18 months of age, and their receptive vocabulary, that whatever they are receiving is more vast and more larger than their productive, that how much they are going to produce, how much they are going to say is going to be very much limited in comparison to how much they have received and how much they have learned. So vocabulary spurts or naming explosion begins around 18 months of age, and then they start saying new word every day approximately, and by first grade the average child's vocabulary is to approximately 10,000 words, which builds to an astonishing 40,000 words by their 5th grade. So these are the vocabulary spurts. And the fast mapping, this is the process that you need to learn. So fast mapping is, you have to memorize these three. Now fast mapping, overextension, underextension. As the name says, fast mapping is something is happening fast. Some map is making up fast. Some network is making up fast. So in fast mapping, child is mapping a word with a concept on only just one first exposure. This is just like you can memorize the love at first sight. So this is the fast mapping, that they are going to map their first word, the which they are going to say, which they are going to see, for example a tape, a board, or anything like that. If they are going to learn that word with they are going to absorb its vocabulary, they are going to learn its vocabulary along with the object, then it is going to be called the fast mapping, because only on a single encounter or the first encounter they have learned the concept and the object related to it. Then overextension is that when a child is incorrectly overgeneralizing an object or action. For example, a child might say the word ball for anything which is round. It could be a fruit, it could be moon, it could be anything other than the ball, but he is saying it ball. So what is that? Overextension, because he is extending it over and beyond its level and overly generalizing it. So this is overextension. And what will be the other underextension? I guess you can guess it right now, because it is something under it is not generalizing, and he is unable to name the things which are under the same category. For example, if there is his favorite ball, which we have used in overextension example, that he is going to say ball to every round thing. So in underextension, what is happening, that whatever he likes about his ball, there is one favorite ball which is pink in color and which has number of lines over it. So he calls that particular ball a ball, but not other balls in the category. For example, basketball, baseball, football, tennis ball, he don't call them ball, because they are not having that particular pattern or that particular color in that. That's why we are going to say that it is an under extension, because he is incorrectly using the word to describe narrower sets of actions or behavior. I hope this is clear now, and we are moving forward. You can always ask me again. Combining words, moving towards combining words. When they are combining words, there are few errors which they can make in that age. The telegraphic speech, is in its name says, it is just telegraphic, that it is mainly of the content words, article, prepositions, and they are minimizing all the connecting words, helping verbs in that. And the mean length of their utterance, we say it MLU, that is the average length a youngster speaks. The spoken statement is, that is measured by the morphemes, that how many morphemes he is using. As children grow and begin to combine their words, the vocal expression becomes longer and their words and their sentences become more meaningful. But before that, they are not connecting it, so they are just making and thus using the morphemes, which are sometimes uncomprehendable. So over regularizations, when we talk about that occurs when grammatical rules are incorrectly generalized, and irregular cases where they do not apply. For example, there is an example given, I hit the ball, the girl goes home. So these are the example that when they have over regularized the grammatical rules. Let's go towards refining language skills. Now their language skills are getting more mature, and as they are refining their language skill by the age of 4 to 5 years, their sentences are getting more complex, their sentences are becoming more complicated, because now they are receiving formal training in written language, and their learning from the environment is also making it more complex and more complicated. So they are refining their language skills. And metalinguistic awareness is that they have the ability now to reflect the use of language. In this, they can summarize, they can paraphrase, they can predict, they can comprehend the information, they can make logical inferences of the sentences, they can understand the metaphors, and they can make abstract ideas, they can explain abstract idea, they are able to understand the abstract ideas and the metaphors around them. So that is their metalinguistic awareness. And by the age of 6 and 8, most of the children begin to appreciate irony and sarcasm. They are able to understand that. Before that, it is very difficult for them to understand and comprehend. And in this age they are able to understand irony and sarcasm. As we are saying, then irony and sarcasm, as you can say, they are some sort of negative meanings in which you are going to say something but you mean you actually you mean the opposite of that. That is irony. For example, if someone got some bad grade and someone commented on them, oh, that's great, so this is an irony, example of irony. And sarcasm is that when someone is commenting on to someone directly, and there is a causal relationship between that, or between that particular person, then commenting on a blunder of a husband by a moment, that my husband is a genius, so that is a sarcasm, the negative statement about a particular person, in which is actually opposite to what a person is actually saying towards that. Then moving towards learning more than one language, bilingualism, then the notes are given to you, and cultural language and thoughts, the notes are given to you as well about these two topics. Then you can go through these two topics from there as well. Now let's move towards problem solving.